videoing this at the same time, so there'll be a link to watch as well. It's really interesting. I try to come not knowing what I'm going to say, not knowing quite what, because that makes it very alive. And so just a few minutes ago, I thought I would see what I might have to say and think about seeing and coming to our senses, literally coming to our senses. So in the conventional sense of the word seeing, the eyes are the apparatus, aren't they? And light comes into the eye, and then that goes to the back of the eyeball, and then somewhere in the brain it gets translated into something, an image, and then we make meaning out of it. But if you want to sort of look into the distance or look at something, often there's something that is slightly displacing. The energy of looking. Whereas in fact, everything comes to you without you having to do anything at all. Yeah. And in fact, as you'll remember, as soon as the head is this heavy head is a little bit displaced, that puts the whole of the rest of your system into a slight frenzy, a sort of sub-radar frenzy of don't let me fall, and a grabbing. And with that narrowing of the focus, part of the visual receptors in the eye, you lose some of them. You haven't got this widened view. You haven't got your peripheral vision. Often that vision becomes narrowed. And so, in fact, you become less and less receptive to seeing, to catching what's in the environment, as well as whatever the task or the object of interest is in front of you. You know, there are other areas of seeing. I suppose you could widen that, broaden that, and talk about perceiving. My back is perceiving the chair. I'm receiving the chair through my back. And my feet are perceiving the floor. And again, as soon as the focus is narrowed, some of that extra sensory information becomes excluded. I mean, I know the number of times I've been thinking about something on my bicycle and I've hardly seen what's in front of me. Or if I'm listening to Brahms on the radio in the car, I've gone off to Wales instead of to Nottingham, because I've just been totally in one sense, instead of a sort of panorama of the senses. And then we have this other sort of internal information. We have information that comes in from the outside world, through the skin, temperature, fragrance, sounds, taste. But we have internal sensory apparatus, sensory organs. So that if you were to place a hand behind your back and wiggle your fingers, you'd know whether you had a closed fist or an open hand. These are the joint receptors, so that you can tell where you are in space without having to look. And they're wonderful. You can tell whether your finger is bent uncomfortably or how far it will go. So these are sort of internal senses. And I think sometimes if there's well, I was feeling really crabby this morning. It's like, what? Why bother? And with all of that, everything starts to clamp down. And you know that expression when you start to see red. There's only one time in my life where I've ever really seen red. And it was literally like a red wave coming upon me. But that rise of emotion alters all your ability to sense. And I'm not saying that emotion is a bad thing. It's not at all. But you kind of want to have some recovery from that. Otherwise it's very tiring. And so I think it's really helpful just to come to the senses, come to the portals of the sense, the eyes, ears, mouth, nose, skin, joints, bones, and embrace everything that they have to tell you. So it's just a thought away. These are all just thoughts, really. And so in a way I could call this a kinesthetic meditation, but also I'd quite like to call it directed thought, as an active way in which you can have some conscious effect on your whole system as you go about your day. So just to finish with, take a look around you and then look ahead of you and see if you can allow your vision to take in the width of the room and the depth of your focus. And notice how that gently actually just leaves your head on top of your spine. And how the fact of your head balancing beautifully on the top of your spine is much more likely to enable you to take in your environment. And when you're sensitive to yourself and sensitive to the outer world as well, you're kind of really stable and supported within that. And believe it or not, when you're out and about and you meet people from that centered place, you become something that assists them in their experience of the world. Exactly. Oh, that's given me goosebumps just thinking about it. I think that's it, really. Yeah. Do you want to unmute yourself if there's anything you want to say or feedback?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, it's true. I was also